My parents didn't book a room for me on our family trip. My sister laughed and said, "We reserved rooms for me, my husband, and my child. We're the real family." I calmly replied, "Then I'll leave," and walked out. Hours later, after ignoring dozens of their calls, something unthinkable happened. My own sister looked me dead in the eye and casually delivered a gut punch that shattered my world. "We are the real family now. You are just visiting." She said it right there at the resort reception after my parents invited me on a family vacation and somehow forgot to book me a room. That moment, everything I thought I knew about my family, about belonging, just evaporated. Before that day, family was everything to me. My name is Anthony. I'm 32, and growing up in suburban Chicago, our annual vacations weren't just trips, they were sacred traditions, full of laughter, connection, and memories that still make me smile. My dad, a small business owner, always made time for me, whether it was fishing or helping with science projects. My mom, an elementary school teacher, was at every school event, making our home the warmest place on earth. We weren't rich, but experiences? Those were priceless. After college, I moved to Boston to become a software engineer. 1,000 miles away, but I made it a point to fly home for every holiday, every important occasion. Sunday evening video calls were our ritual, hearing about their day, sharing mine. It was good. My sister, Melissa, she's 35, 3 years older than me. She stayed in Chicago, married her college sweetheart, Ryan, a financial advisor. And then came Emma. At 10 months old, my niece had become the absolute, undisputed center of my parents' universe. Their first grandchild, the house was basically a shrine of baby photos and tiny handprints. And I was genuinely happy for her. When Emma was born, I flew home immediately. I spent a week helping out, bringing coffee for the sleep-deprived new parents, even learning to change diapers. I bought Emma a whole collection of children's books, a special bookcase for her nursery. I wanted to build a real relationship with my niece right from the start. But over the past few months, things had subtly shifted. Our video calls, they revolved almost entirely around Emma's latest achievements. My parents started missing our scheduled Sunday calls. "Oh, we're babysitting," or "We're at Emma's first swimming lesson." When I shared the news about my promotion at work, my mom offered a quick congratulations before launching into a detailed account of Emma's first crawl. It stung a little, but I brushed it off. So, when my dad called in early June, suggesting a week-long Florida beach vacation, I was ecstatic. A real family vacation, just like when we were kids. And Emma would be there. Despite a critical project deadline looming, I arranged to work remotely for a few days and took the rest as vacation. "We found this amazing resort in Destin," my dad explained. "Right on the beach. Multiple pools, restaurants. Sounds perfect." I replied, "Just send me the details, I'll book my flight." Actually, my mom interjected, "We thought we'd all drive. It's about 16 hours from Chicago, but we can break it up." I considered the logistics. Driving from Boston would take much longer. "Maybe I'll fly into a nearby airport and rent a car," I suggested. So we settled on it. My parents, Melissa, Ryan, and Emma would drive from Chicago. I'd fly into Fort Walton Beach, rent a car, and meet them there. We'd all arrive on a Saturday afternoon and stay for 7 nights. The family group chat buzzed with excitement. My mom sent links to attractions, Melissa posted photos of Emma's tiny swimsuits, Ryan researched fishing charters, and I suggested restaurants and a sunset cruise. Nobody, not once, mentioned room arrangements. In hindsight, that should have been my first warning. But I just assumed we'd follow our usual vacation pattern. My parents in one room, Melissa in hers, and me in mine. With Ryan and Emma, I figured they'd booked a larger suite or connecting rooms. I packed my shorts, t-shirts, swim trunks, sunscreen. I even bought Emma a beach ball and an inflatable float, wrapping them carefully. The night before my flight, I called my parents to confirm details. "We can't wait to see you, honey," my mom said. "Emma's been babbling, we think she's trying to say, Uncle Anthony. I can't wait to see all of you too," I replied. "This vacation is exactly what I need right now." If only I'd known what was waiting for me at that resort reception desk. My flight landed under clear blue skies. The drive to Destin was stunning, turquoise waters, palm trees swaying. After months of Boston's gray, the Florida sunshine felt like therapy. I arrived at the Emerald Coast Resort around 3 p.m., even more impressive than the photos. A grand lobby, soaring ceilings, marble floors, and a pristine white beach beyond. I spotted my family. Immediately, my dad waved enthusiastically. My mom was bouncing Emma on her knee, Melissa and Ryan nearby, looking perfectly relaxed. A genuine smile spread across my face. Despite the recent tensions, they were my family, and I was thrilled to be with them. Anthony, my father called, enveloping me in a bear hug. How was your flight? Smooth and on time, I said, returning his embrace, then hugging my mom and Melissa. I shook Ryan's hand, then bent to Emma's level. Hey there, little one. Uncle Anthony brought you some beach toys. Emma babbled happily, reaching for my face with her chubby hands. I felt that familiar surge of affection for my niece. We just finished checking in, my mother said. The resort is gorgeous, isn't it? 5 different pools. Looks amazing, I agreed. Let me get checked in, too, and then we can plan our first activity. I approached the reception desk. Welcome to Emerald Coast Resort. Checking in today, a friendly attendant asked. Yes, reservation under Anthony Reynolds, part of the Reynolds family booking. She typed, her brow furrowing. I don't see a reservation under that name. She kept searching. Behind me, I could hear Emma's delighted giggles as my father played. Peekaboo. I'm sorry, sir, the attendant finally said. I don't show a room reserved for Anthony Reynolds. I see 2 rooms under the Reynolds booking, one for Thomas and Margaret Reynolds, and one for Melissa and Ryan Crawford with a crib request. Confused, I turned to my family. There seems to be some confusion with the reservation. They can't find my room. My father approached the desk, his expression suddenly uncomfortable. My mother became intensely interested in Emma's toy giraffe. But Melissa? She had a subtle smirk, playing at the corner of her mouth. Dad? I prompted. Is there another confirmation number I should give them? He cleared his throat. Well, Anthony, we only booked 2 rooms. Your mother and I will have Emma in our room. Since we brought the portable crib, Melissa and Ryan have the other room. He trailed off. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. Okay, but where am I supposed to stay? An awkward silence fell. The receptionist, sensing the tension, tactfully focused on her screen. We thought you might be able to figure something out, my mother finally said, not quite meeting my eyes. Maybe find a room here or at another hotel nearby. Figure something out? I repeated, struggling to keep my voice even. You invited me on a family vacation, but didn't actually include me in the plans. Melissa stepped forward, bouncing Emma on her hip. Mom and Dad are covering our rooms as a gift since Ryan took unpaid leave to be here. We assumed since you make good money at your fancy tech job, you could cover your own room. That is not the point. I snapped, a flush of anger rising in my neck. Why wouldn't you tell me this before I flew all the way down here? The courtesy of a heads up would have been nice. We didn't think it would be a big deal, my father said weakly. We figured you'd understand. I turned back to the receptionist. Do you have any available rooms for the week? She typed quickly, then shook her head apologetically. I'm sorry, sir. We're fully booked for the next 10 days. It's peak season, and we have a corporate retreat arriving tomorrow. Perfect, I muttered under my breath. It's just a room, Anthony, Melissa said with an eye roll. Stop making such a big deal about it. We reserved rooms for me, my husband, and my child. We are the real family now. You are just visiting. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to contradict her, to insist that I was absolutely part of the real family. Instead, my mother looked distressed while my father examined his shoes. In that moment, something crystallized inside me. Perhaps this room situation was merely a symptom of a larger shift that had been happening gradually since Emma's birth. I was no longer a priority. I was an afterthought, expected to make my own arrangements while still showing up with gifts and enthusiasm. I see, I said finally, my voice calm despite the storm of emotions inside. Well, if I'm not considered part of the family anymore, then there's no reason for me to stay. Anthony, don't be dramatic. My mother finally found her voice. I'm not being dramatic, I replied, evenly. I'm simply acknowledging the reality of the situation. You didn't include me in your plans. Melissa has made it clear where I stand. So, I will leave you to your family vacation. Where will you go? My father asked, looking genuinely concerned now that he realized I was serious. I'll figure something out, I replied deliberately, echoing his earlier words. Enjoy your week at the beach. With that, I turned and walked calmly toward the exit, ignoring their calls behind me. I had driven halfway across the parking lot before I heard running footsteps. Ryan appeared at my side, slightly out of breath. Anthony, wait, he said. This is ridiculous. Let me talk to Melissa and your parents. We can work something out. There's nothing to work out, I replied. The situation is perfectly clear. Thanks for at least making the effort, Ryan. I got into my rental car and drove away, watching in the rearview mirror as my brother-in-law stood in the parking lot, looking uncertain about what to do next. Gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles turned white. My mind raced between disbelief, hurt, and pure anger. Part of me, the logical part, suggested turning around, compromising. But another part, the one that had felt increasingly marginalized in my own family, needed space. I headed east on Highway 98 with no particular destination, palm trees and beachfront properties blurring past. My phone buzzed repeatedly, Mom, Dad, even Melissa. I ignored them all. After about an hour of aimless driving, I spotted a modest roadside motel, the Sandpiper Inn. Its sign promised clean rooms and cable TV, a far cry from the luxury resort I'd just left. But at this point, I just needed to regroup. The middle-aged woman at the desk barely looked up from her paperback as she handed me a physical key to room 118. The room was basic but clean, a faded floral bedspread, a small table, a TV from the early 2000s. Through thin curtains, I could glimpse the ocean. Not the beachfront view I'd anticipated, but at least the AC worked. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally checked my phone. 12 missed calls, 27 text messages. My mother's voicemail was tearful, begging me to come back. My father's was more measured, admitting they had handled things poorly. Melissa's text simply read, "You are being childish. Grow up." With a sigh, I turned off my phone and lay back, staring at the ceiling. Memories of childhood vacations flooded my mind. Yellowstone, San Diego, Washington, D.C. In every single one, I had been an integral part of the family unit. When had that changed? The shift had been so gradual, I'd hardly noticed it. Small signs I'd dismissed. Last Thanksgiving, Mom made all of Melissa's favorite dishes, but forgot the cranberry sauce I always requested. Christmas, Melissa and Ryan got a generous check for their mortgage. I got a store-bought sweater. My birthday call last month lasted barely 5 minutes before Mom mentioned helping Melissa with Emma. None of these incidents seemed significant in isolation, but together, they formed a pattern I'd been reluctant to acknowledge. Emma's arrival had reshaped our family dynamics, and somehow, I had been pushed to the periphery. I must have dozed off, because when I opened my eyes, the room was bathed in the golden light of sunset. My stomach growled. I found a small seafood shack down the road, ordered grilled grouper, and watched the sun disappear into the Gulf. Back in my room, I turned my phone on, briefly to text my parents. I am safe. Need some time to think. We'll be in touch tomorrow. Then, I turned it off again and took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away some of the tension. That night, I slept fitfully, dreaming of family gatherings where everyone could see me, but no one acknowledged my presence. I woke at dawn, unrest but with a clearer head. Rather than rushing back, I decided to give myself the day I'd planned. After a quick diner breakfast, I found a public beach, swimming in the crystal-clear water and collecting seashells that reminded me of the ones Melissa and I had gathered as kids. Around noon, I turned my phone back on, bracing myself for the barrage. There were even more messages, their tone increasingly urgent. My mother's latest text caught my attention. Immediately, "Emma has a high fever. We are worried. Please call." My heart raced as I scrolled through subsequent messages. Apparently, Emma had developed a fever last night that continued to rise. The resort doctor recommended taking her to the local hospital for tests and observation. My parents were frantic, and even Melissa's messages had lost their accusatory edge, replaced by genuine fear. Despite everything that had happened, concern for my niece overrode all other emotions. I found a shady spot under a palm tree and called my mother. She answered on the first ring. Anthony. Oh, thank goodness. How is Emma? I asked, skipping any preamble. She's at GF Coast Hospital, my mother said, her voice tight with worry. Her fever reached 103.5 and she's been pulling at her ear. The doctor thinks it might be an ear infection, but they're running tests to make sure it's nothing more serious. She seems so miserable, Anthony. I'll be there as soon as I can, I said without hesitation. Text me the hospital address. The relief in my mother's voice was palpable. You're coming? Of course I'm coming, I said. She's my niece. I ended the call and headed straight for my rental car. I drove to GF Coast Hospital with single-minded focus. Family disagreements suddenly seemed trivial compared to Emma's health crisis. During college, I'd taken an advanced first aid course and kept an interest in medical topics, often researching health info for friends or family. Melissa had even nicknamed me Dr. Google, though her teasing always held a note of appreciation. The hospital parking lot was crowded. Fat raindrops began falling as I jogged toward the entrance, arriving slightly breathless and damp. I'm looking for Emma Crawford, I told the receptionist. My niece, 10 months old, brought in with a high fever. After verifying I was family, she directed me to the pediatric ward on the 3rd floor. The elevator seemed to move in slow motion. When the doors finally opened, I spotted my father immediately. He was pacing, his normally confident posture replaced by the stooped shoulders of worry. Dad, I called out. He turned, and the relief on his face was immediate and profound. Anthony, you came. He embraced me tightly, something he rarely did. Thank you for coming. How is she? I asked, following him down the corridor. The doctor is with her now. They think it's an ear infection, but they're concerned about the high fever and possible dehydration. She's been refusing to nurse or take a bottle. We reached a small treatment room where my mother sat in a chair, looking years older than yesterday. Melissa stood by a hospital crib, her hand resting on Emma's tiny leg. Ryan was speaking quietly with a doctor in the corner. All heads turned when we entered. Anthony, my mother rushed to hug me. I'm so glad you're here. Melissa's eyes were red and puffy from crying. For a moment, we looked at each other awkwardly, yesterday's harsh words hanging between us. Then her facade cracked, and she whispered, Thank you for coming. I moved to the crib where Emma lay, flushed and whimpering. Her usual vibrant energy was nowhere to be seen. She wore only a diaper with a cooling pad on her forehead and monitoring wires on her chest, and 4-line delivered fluids to her tiny arm, secured with colorful tape. Hey, sweetheart, I said softly, touching her warm cheek. Emma's eyes fluttered open, and despite her discomfort, she gave a weak smile of recognition. The doctor, a young woman with a gentle demeanor, approached us. You must be the uncle I've been hearing about, she said, extending her hand. I'm Dr. Patel. Anthony Reynolds, I replied. What are we dealing with here? Dr. Patel explained that Emma had a severe ear infection, common in infants after travel or swimming. The concern was her high fever and dehydration. We've started her on antibiotics, she continued. The 4 is providing necessary fluids and fever reducers. We'll need to monitor her for at least 24 hours. I asked several specific questions about the antibiotics, side effects, and recovery timeline. Dr. Patel seemed impressed by my knowledge. My family listened intently, Melissa even taking notes on her phone. You seem very well informed, Dr. Patel commented. I do a lot of research, I replied. And I want what's best for my niece. After the doctor left, promising to return in an hour, an awkward silence fell. The medical discussion had provided a buffer, but now we faced the unresolved tension from yesterday. I'll get some coffee for everyone, Ryan suggested tactfully, sensing the need for family space. Anthony, want to help me carry everything? I nodded, grateful for his perceptiveness. As we walked toward the cafeteria, Ryan spoke candidly. Look, I want to apologize for yesterday. The room situation was handled poorly. You don't need to apologize, I replied. It wasn't your decision. Actually, I knew about it and didn't speak up, he admitted. I should have said something. The truth is, Melissa has been struggling with some things lately. What do you mean? Ryan sighed. Becoming a mother has been harder than she expected. Emma had colic for 3 months, barely sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. Melissa had postpartum depression, though she would never admit it to you or your parents. This was news to me. She never said anything. Because you're the successful one, Ryan explained. In her mind, you have the perfect career, the freedom to travel, no responsibilities tying you down. She feels like your parents have always been prouder of your achievements than hers. That's ridiculous. I protested. They've always supported both of us. Maybe so, but that's not how she sees it. When Emma came along, it was finally something she had that you didn't. A way to be the center of attention. His words made me reconsider countless interactions from Melissa's perspective. Had my sister really felt like she was living in my shadow all these years? We returned with coffee to find my parents sitting close together, speaking in hushed tones. My mother's eyes were red. Melissa stood by Emma's crib, gently stroking her daughter's hair. She's sleeping, Melissa whispered as we entered. Her fever has come down a little. We all settled into the cramped room, sipping coffee in silence. Finally, my father cleared his throat. Anthony, about yesterday. We owe you an apology. Yes, we do, my mother agreed. We handled everything terribly. I took a deep breath. Why didn't you just tell me ahead of time about the room situation? I could have made arrangements. It was the surprise and exclusion that hurt. My parents exchanged glances. We were embarrassed, my father finally admitted. The truth is, we couldn't afford 3 rooms. What? This was unexpected. My parents had always been financially stable. My business has been struggling since the big hardware chain opened across town, he explained. We've been using our retirement savings to stay afloat. This vacation was already stretching our budget, but we wanted to do something special with Emma while she's still a baby. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, stunned by this revelation. Pride, my father said simply. I didn't want my successful son to know I was failing. You are not failing, Dad, I said firmly. Businesses go through tough times, but keeping secrets like this only makes things worse. Melissa, who had been quiet until now, suddenly burst into tears. This is all my fault, she sobbed. I pushed for this vacation. I pushed for them to pay for our room, and I said those horrible things to you, Anthony. Mel, I began, but she continued through her tears. The truth is I've been jealous of you for years. You left home, built this amazing career while I stayed in Chicago, married my college boyfriend, became a mother. Your life seems so exciting compared to midnight feedings and diaper changes. My life is not as perfect as you imagine, I said gently. I work 70-hour weeks. My last relationship ended because I was too dedicated to my job. My apartment barely feels like home because I'm there so rarely. But Mom and Dad are so proud of you, she insisted, always bragging about their son, the software engineer. They brag about you too, I countered. Every video call I hear about what an amazing mother you are, how beautiful Emma is, how you're carrying on the family traditions. We stared at each other, suddenly seeing the same situations from completely different perspectives. Before we could continue, a nurse entered to check Emma's vital signs, reporting that her fever was continuing to decrease. Collective relief temporarily pushed aside our conversation. When the nurse left, my mother reached for both Melissa's hand and mine. We've been terrible communicators, all of us, she said, and it nearly tore our family apart. It shouldn't have taken Emma getting sick to bring us back together. As if on cue, Emma stirred in her crib and let out a small whimper. Melissa and I both moved toward her simultaneously, then paused, looking at each other. You go, I said. You're her mother. Melissa shook her head. We both go. She needs her uncle, too. Standing side by side over Emma's crib, watching her fever-bright eyes find and recognize both our faces, I felt the first fragile threads of reconciliation begin to form. Night fell outside the hospital windows as Emma finally drifted into a more peaceful sleep. Her fever had stabilized at a lower temperature, and Dr. Patel seemed cautiously optimistic. The antibiotics appeared to be working, though she would need to remain under observation overnight. My parents, exhausted from a day of worry, reluctantly agreed to return to the resort for a few Hours of rest. Melissa was determined to stay at Emma's bedside, and Ryan volunteered to go with my parents and bring back a change of clothes for everyone. You should go too, Anthony, Melissa said. You've been here for hours. I'll stay if that's okay, I replied. You might need a break, and I'm not tired. After my parents and Ryan left, Melissa and I sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs on opposite sides of Emma's crib. The beeping of monitors and distant hospital sounds filled the silence. I meant what I said earlier. Melissa finally spoke. I'm sorry for what I said at the resort. It was cruel and not at all what I really think. What do you really think? I asked, quietly. She looked down at her sleeping daughter. I think I've been trying so hard to be a perfect mother that I forgot how to be a decent sister. She met my eyes. The truth is I've felt inadequate compared to you for years. You were always the smart one, the one with big dreams. I stayed in our hometown, married young, followed the expected path. I never saw it that way, I admitted. I always admired how confident you were about what you wanted. I moved to Boston, partly because I wasn't sure what else to do with myself. Really? She looked genuinely surprised. You always seem to have everything figured out. Hardly, I laughed softly. I work constantly because I'm afraid of failing. My apartment is basically just a place to sleep between work shifts, and dating in your 30s in a city where everyone is career-obsessed is nearly impossible. I had no idea, Melissa said. You always post such exciting things on social media. That's the highlight reel, I explained. Nobody posts about eating microwave dinners alone on a Tuesday night. A nurse came in to check Emma's vitals, smiling approvingly at the readings before quietly leaving us alone again. Can I ask you something? I ventured. Ryan mentioned you had postpartum depression. Why didn't you tell me? Melissa's expression tightened. Because you would have tried to fix it with research and solutions, and sometimes I just needed someone to listen, without trying to solve my problems. Her words stung with their accuracy. I did tend to approach problems analytically rather than emotionally. I would have tried to listen, I said, if I had known that was what you needed. I know, she conceded, but it was easier to keep you at a distance than admit I was struggling, especially when Mom and Dad were calling you every week to brag about what an amazing mother I was. They were probably trying to include me in Emma's life, I suggested, but it made you feel like you were being compared to some idealized standard. Melissa nodded, wiping away a tear. Exactly. And then when they suggested this vacation, I saw it as my chance to show everyone what a perfect little family we had become. I pushed for them to pay for our room, knowing they were struggling financially. You knew about Dad's business problems. I was surprised. Ryan helped them refinance their mortgage last year. She admitted. I knew things were tight, but I still let them spend money on us because it made you feel valued. I finished for her. She nodded miserably. And now Emma is sick, and we're all miserable, and it feels like punishment for my selfishness. Emma's ear. Infection is not punishment, I said firmly. Kids get sick. It happens. But if we hadn't come on this vacation, then she might have gotten sick at home instead. At least here, I pointed out. She's got good medical care and her whole family around her. The door opened and Ryan returned with a duffel bag of clothes and a tray of sandwiches. Your parents are resting, he reported. They'll come back first thing in the morning. He looked between us. Everything okay here? We're getting there, I said, accepting a sandwich. Gratefully, Ryan pulled up a chair beside Melissa. I should probably tell Anthony about the room arrangements, he said quietly to her. Melissa sighed but nodded. He deserves to know everything. Ryan turned to me. The truth is, I argued against the two-room plan from the start. I even offered to pay for your room myself. That's true, Melissa admitted. But also part of me wanted to make you feel excluded, to give you a taste of how I've felt all these years living in your shadow. So, instead of talking to me about these feelings, you decided to teach me a lesson. I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. It was immature and mean, she acknowledged. I convinced myself you would just book your own room without complaint because you can afford it. I never expected you to walk away. I almost did not, I confessed. But when you said that thing about the real family, I didn't mean it, she said quickly. I was just lashing out because I felt defensive. Our conversation was interrupted by Dr. Patel, bringing good news. The antibiotics were working effectively. Emma's fever continued to decrease, and she had taken a small amount of liquid without resistance. If she continues improving at this rate, you should be able to take her back to your hotel tomorrow afternoon, Dr. Patel said. The relief in the room was palpable. Melissa hugged Ryan tightly, tears of happiness replacing yesterday's worried ones. My parents thanked the doctor profusely, and I found myself releasing tension I hadn't realized I was holding. As we waited for Emma's discharge, my father pulled me aside. Son, there's something I need to say. Dad, really, we can talk about the money later. This isn't about money, he said firmly. It's about how we've treated you. Somehow, in our excitement about becoming grandparents, we forgot to be fair parents. We took you for granted because you've always been so capable and independent. I have felt a bit sidelined, I admitted. More than a bit, I think. He replied sadly. And that ends today? You are an essential part of this family, Anthony. Always. Have been. Always will be. His words were simple, but exactly what I needed to hear. Before I could respond, a nurse entered with discharge papers. The timing of our deeper reconciliation would have to wait, but my father's acknowledgement had already begun healing wounds I had barely acknowledged to myself. Late afternoon sunlight bathed the Emerald Coast Resort in golden hues as we returned from the hospital. Emma, still on antibiotics but significantly improved, had fallen asleep in her car seat. The crisis had passed, leaving us emotionally drained but relieved. In the resort parking lot, we faced the practical reality. 2 rooms for 5 adults and a baby. Ryan broke the awkward silence. Anthony, you should take our room tonight, he suggested. Melissa and I can stay with Emma in her grandparents' room since they have the portable crib. That's not necessary, I protested. I found a decent motel about an hour from here. Absolutely not, Melissa said firmly. You are staying here with us. This is a family vacation, and you are family. I have a better idea, my father interjected. Let me speak with the resort manager. Perhaps. They've had a cancellation. We gathered in the lobby while my father approached the reception desk. Emma had awakened, looking around with bright, curious eyes that showed no trace of yesterday's misery. My mother held her, whispering endearments. You were amazing at the hospital, Melissa said quietly to me. The way you asked all those detailed questions about the medication and treatment plan. I was too emotional to think clearly. That's what uncles are for, I replied. Research and bad jokes. And midnight watches, she added with a grateful smile. Ryan told me. You didn't sleep at all. I caught a few minutes here and there, I said. But mostly I wanted to make sure she was okay. My father returned with a resort manager, a tall woman in a crisp blue suit. Mr. Reynolds has explained your situation, she said warmly. While we are still fully booked, we do have a 2-bedroom family suite that became available this morning when another guest needed to leave. Unexpectedly, it would be more than enough space for all of you, with a living area and kitchenette. That sounds perfect, my mother exclaimed. How much extra would it be? The manager named a figure that made my parents exchange worried glances. Before they could respond, I stepped forward. We'll take it, I said. I'd be happy to cover the difference as my contribution to our family vacation. Anthony, no, my father began. We can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering, I replied. And technically, I still owe for my portion of the vacation anyway. After some discussion, we reached a compromise. I would pay the upgrade fee. My parents would cover the base cost they had already budgeted for 2 rooms, and Ryan insisted on paying for all our meals for the remainder of the trip. The family suite exceeded our expectations. Located on the top floor with a stunning ocean view, it featured 2 spacious bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a full living room with a sleeper sofa, and a well-appointed kitchenette. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto a private balcony that wrapped around the corner of the building. This is incredible, Melissa breathed, taking in the panoramic view of white sand beaches and turquoise waters. We quickly settled in. My parents took 1 bedroom, Melissa and Ryan took the other with Emma's portable crib, and I would use the sleeper sofa in the living room. It was a perfect arrangement that gave everyone space while keeping us together as a family. That evening, we ordered room service. As we ate on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in vivid oranges and pinks. My father raised his glass in a toast. To family, he said. Simply, all of us, together. The toast opened the door to the conversation we needed to have. Over dessert, we talked openly about the misunderstandings and hurt feelings that had accumulated. Over the past year, I never meant to make you feel less important when Emma came along. My mother told me earnestly. I think I got so caught up in being a grandmother that I forgot to keep being your mother, too. And I've been jealous of your relationship with Emma, admitted. Melissa, you created this amazing new person who instantly became the center of everyone's world. It made me feel like I had been replaced. I never saw it that way, Melissa said. Thoughtfully, I just assumed you were too busy with your important job to care much about baby stuff. Are you kidding? I laughed. I've probably shown Emma's pictures to everyone at my office. My team knows more about my niece's developmental milestones than they do about our project deadlines. This revelation seemed to surprise and please Melissa. Really, I confirmed. Just because I live far away doesn't mean I don't want to be involved in her life. The conversation shifted to my father's business troubles. He explained how the large hardware chain had steadily eroded his customer base, and how he had been too proud to adapt or seek help. I know a few people in small business development, I offered, and my company has been doing some work with retail analytics that might help you identify new opportunities. I would appreciate that, my father said, his expression a mix of relief and lingering pride. I should have told you sooner. We all need to communicate better, my mother concluded. No more secrets, no more assumptions. The remainder of our vacation transformed into the family bonding experience we had all hoped for. We established a new routine that balanced group activities with individual preferences. Mornings were spent together on the beach, building sandcastles for Emma and swimming. Afternoons allowed for personal time. My father and Ryan went deep-sea fishing. My mother enjoyed the spa. Melissa took Emma for walks, and I explored a local nature preserve with my camera. Evenings brought us back together for dinner, sharing stories, playing board games, and taking turns caring for Emma, who quickly bounced back to her usual cheerful self. On our last evening, we arranged for a professional photographer to take family pictures on the beach at sunset. The resulting images captured our reconciliation perfectly, my parents, Melissa and Ryan holding Emma, and me beside them all, clearly part of the family unit once more. As we packed our belongings the next morning, Melissa approached me with Emma in her arms. We've been thinking, she said, glancing at Ryan, who nodded encouragingly. Would you consider being Emma's godfather officially? I mean, we've been putting off her christening, but we would really like you to have a formal role in her life. Emotion tightened my throat. I would be honored, I managed to say. And, she continued, maybe you could come visit more often, or we could bring Emma to Boston sometimes. I want her to know her Uncle Anthony, not just through video calls. I would like that very much, I replied, reaching out to take Emma's tiny hand in mine. Maybe I could even look at job opportunities closer to Chicago. My company has been talking about opening a Midwest office. Really? Melissa's face lit up. You would consider moving back? I'm not making any promises, I cautioned. But this week has reminded me what I've been missing by living so far from family. Emma babbled happily and reached for me. As I took her in my arms, I felt the last pieces of tension melt away. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family. 3 months have passed since our eventful Florida vacation, and the changes in our family dynamic have been profound and lasting. What began as a painful exclusion transformed into a catalyst for honest communication and renewed connections. Upon returning home, we each made concrete efforts. My parents established a new Sunday ritual, separate video calls with Melissa's family and with me, ensuring each of us received focused attention. My father and I scheduled weekly discussions about his business challenges. Together, we developed a strategy to differentiate his hardware store by emphasizing personalized service and specialized products. I connected him with a retail consultant from my network, helping modernize inventory and reduce overhead. By the 3rd month, the store showed its first profit increase in over a year. Melissa and I rebuilt our sibling relationship through honest conversations about our perceptions and insecurities. I admitted my jealousy of her stable family life, while she acknowledged her envy of my career freedom. These admissions cleared the air between us in ways we had never experienced before. True to my word, I began exploring professional opportunities. Closer to Chicago, my company was indeed considering a Midwest expansion, and I submitted a formal proposal to lead the initiative. While still in the evaluation phase, the prospect of reducing the geographical distance between us gave our family something hopeful to anticipate. In the meantime, I arranged to work remotely 1 week each month, splitting my time between my parents' home and Melissa's. These visits allowed me to develop a meaningful relationship with Emma, who now enthusiastically exclaimed, "Annie," whenever I appeared on video calls or in person. Watching her personality emerge brought me a joy I had never expected. The christening ceremony took place in late October, a beautiful autumn day. Standing as Emma's godfather, promising to help guide her growth, I felt a profound sense of belonging and purpose. The entire extended family gathered afterward at my parents' home, where photographs of all 3 generations adorned the walls with equal prominence. During these months, I established healthy boundaries while maintaining connections. I learned to speak up when feeling overlooked, rather than retreating into hurt silence. My parents became more conscientious about balancing their attention. Melissa made efforts to include me in family decisions and celebrations. Our communication patterns evolved significantly. We created a family text thread for daily updates, separate from more in-depth video calls. My mother started sending me personalized messages, unrelated to Emma, asking about my work or social life. My father and I discovered a shared interest in photography. Planning for the next family vacation began early, with transparent discussions about budgets, accommodations, and expectations. We decided on a mountain cabin rental in Colorado for the following summer, with costs clearly allocated and everyone's preferences considered. The spreadsheet I created to track expenses became a symbol of our new approach: open, equitable, and considerate of each person's circumstances. The most profound change occurred within myself. The painful experience of feeling excluded forced me to examine my own role in our family dynamics. I realized I had often used work as an excuse to maintain emotional distance, fearing rejection or misunderstanding. By standing up for myself at the resort, I had not only changed how my family treated me, but also how I engaged with them. I learned that speaking truth calmly, rather than suppressing feelings or reacting with anger, could transform relationships. The moment I walked away from the resort had been both an ending and a beginning. The end of accepting marginalization and the beginning of authentic connection based on mutual respect. Family relationships, I came to understand, require active maintenance. They evolve naturally as circumstances change, but navigating these transitions demands conscious effort and clear communication. The arrival of Emma had indeed shifted our family's center of gravity, but there was room for all of us to orbit harmoniously if we acknowledged and accommodated these changes. Together, the most valuable lesson emerged from the hospital crisis. When truly needed, family transcends disagreements. Despite feeling hurt and excluded, I had returned without hesitation. When Emma fell ill, this realization affirmed that beneath the surface tensions ran a deeper current of love and commitment that could withstand challenging tests. Looking toward the future, I feel optimistic about our family's trajectory. We have created new traditions while honoring the spirit of old ones. We have learned to express needs and boundaries respectfully. Most importantly, we have discovered that family bonds can become stronger after being tested, like metal forged in fire. Real family, I now understand, is not defined by who shares a room on vacation or who appears in the most photographs. It is built through consistent presence, honest communication, mutual respect, and the willingness to work through difficult emotions together. It is imperfect and sometimes messy, but ultimately irreplaceable.